I'm Marla Laylock. I'm calling in from Lakeway, Texas, which is on the outskirts of Austin. Obviously, everybody has been moving to where I live. And so we're quite the tech industry down here now. I've owned the IT consulting firm since 2003. We specialize in large ERP and CRM and enterprise solution platforms, front end and back end. We are also, we have our office, we had one in Denver, here in Austin, and we're opening one in Dubai. We are also ramping up for a new nonprofit that will be a global nonprofit, and we're getting ready to fire that off, and that's looking quite nice. So I actually was born in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I graduated from Los Alamos High School, and I worked for the National Laboratory in Los Alamos. So I know New Mexico extremely well. My family actually owned a good chunk of Santa Fe, and the skyline of Albuquerque was built by my family. So I have a lot of development developer into that state, into that area. So we are excited about this opportunity, and we are looking for things that are different, and so that's why we're here.
Fantastic, Marla. And repeat this one more time. Who had the privilege to be part of the skyline, and in which city?
It was my family, the Pickards, Griff and Katie Pickard. They owned Jeanette and Uncle, or I call Uncle Curly, but the Pickards and the Welshes, and also Juliet Watson is my cousin.
Okay, and the skyline of Albuquerque or Santa Fe? I'm just
both. They owned most of the plaza, and they built the big tall buildings in Albuquerque.
Fantastic. Wow, I'm so happy that you're here, Marla. This is fantastic. Yes, okay, so now let's go on to Doug. Doug, please tell us who you are, who you're with, what are your aspirations in life, and why did you take up this invitation to come?
Sure. So I am based in Charlotte, North Carolina, and Miami, Florida. And right now I work for a brokerage just doing small apartment buildings, primarily on the sales side, but some land assemblage for development. So that's what I've been doing for a little while. I have a background in software engineering, so really just working on modernizing my brokerage and kind of have an eye towards the future, both in trying to learn as much as I can about commercial real estate. It seems a very inefficient market. So trying to pair up my love for commercial real estate and then my background in tech. So that's where I'm at, just working primarily just on sales right now, but also trying to learn as much about apartment syndication as well, because I see that kind of the 2 to 5 year mark in the future, and then potentially development after I have more experience under my belt.
Fantastic. You know, you mentioned 2 industries here. Marla's in it too, tech and commercial real estate. And we were having a conversation, and in order for anyone to really utilize their Civic Center Plaza, you have to have both. And I come from a high-tech city in San Francisco, so fantastic. Okay, well, Justin, please introduce yourself, and thank you, Doug. Introduce yourself, Justin. Tell us who you're with and what are your aspirations in life.
Hey everybody, I'm Justin. I started my own real estate investment company not too long ago. I'm still pretty new to real estate investing in general. So far it's been residential. Done a couple of traditional flips and a couple of creative financing strategies. I've always been, not always, but since I've discovered real estate, I've always been attracted to commercial, and I'm not sure what it is, but it's something I definitely want to learn more about and become more involved in. I think, we talked about on LinkedIn a little bit about STEM and STEAM programs, and that's something I'm very passionate about. Getting younger people, if they're not interested in investing, kind of steer them towards the trade, because those are skill sets our country needs. And I have somewhat of a bias towards them as well. Most of my work before investing was in manufacturing. I was an industrial maintenance technician, so I have a large bias towards trades, and so I'm steer that way. And,
Great. Justin, I don't know if it's your connection, but I'm sorry, Justin, to interrupt. I don't know if it's your connection, but I'm having a hard time hearing you. I don't know if it's the volume or your mic, but I did get some information on you, and I think you're going to be liking this presentation. So hang in there. Thank you very much, Justin. Okay, Michael, are you there?
Yes.
Fantastic. I don't know if you could pop on your video, Michael, but that would be.
I'm sorry about that.
Okay, no problem. Hello, Michael. Thank you very much. I like the beard. Very nice. So please, Michael, tell us who you're with. What are your aspirations in life? Tell us a little bit about yourself, and why is it that you accepted this invitation?
Aspirations in life is probably retirement, as y'all can tell. Plenty of scars. Last 37 some odd years, I've been in real estate, primarily in the residential market, and most recently in the last few years, focus on commercial, because in residential, I started doing new homes, and from there development, and from development then just kind of segued into the commercial market. So I guess technically, Doug, we're called residential agents out there. Okay. So El Paso is kind of a unique area here. We're like the 600-pound gorilla for 400 miles. The next nearest city of any potential size is actually up in the Albuquerque area. A lot of growth going on in the southern New Mexico region. I'm interested that I noticed that Rio Rancho now geographically is actually larger than Albuquerque, which is kind of interesting. But one of the fastest growing metro areas in New Mexico is actually Las Cruces, New Mexico, which is just right up the road from us. And from that, it's like maybe a 45-minute drive from where I live in central El Paso to Las Cruces. I can actually get there closer than I can to the far east side of El Paso, being that spread out.
There.
A lot of development all going on here. One of the big things is that we take a look from our standpoint, is not it's a Texas thing or an El Paso thing, but we tend to do things commercially on more of a regional type basis. And so I'm very interested in what's going on in New Mexico. Actually, it's really part of our backyard there. But it's interesting to see how quickly Rio Rancho has been growing there. So there's the possibility of doing some business, going both ways. People from Rio Rancho coming down here, people from El Paso also going up in that particular area. So I'm here to see what you got to offer.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Michael. It seems like everyone that's been or is on this presentation is giving me a positive vibe, and that's so good. I think one thing that we have in common is that most of us that were in real estate did start in the residential market. I must say this. A lot of times people don't want to leap into the commercial because they're under this thought that, oh my goodness, I don't have enough money to get involved in there. But the nice thing about commercial real estate is that you get involved with syndicates or groups of people, masterminded people. And if you really think about it, it really relieves a lot of the tension and stress of you doing it by yourself. Any big project, look around any big city, the majority of them are syndicates. And those commercial properties, particularly mixed use, they're legacies. They continue on and on and on. And so anyway, without further ado, I'm going to start this presentation. And we thank you very much, everyone, for introducing themselves. And let me just start here. Now, I'm going to share my screen here and see if you could see this. Can everyone see this? Give me a thumbs up. Okay, fantastic. Rio Rancho, like Michael mentioned, and I'm sure that Marla knows this, Rio Rancho is not an old city. In fact, it's only about 40 years old. What is really special about Rio Rancho and their motto, City of Vision, is that it differs from Albuquerque and Santa Fe. In what sense? It doesn't have an ingrained personality in it yet. And why do I say that? Well, there would be cities that would love a culture like Albuquerque and Santa Fe that are centuries old, right? But if you think about it, here, when you get a city that really hasn't put a personality in itself yet, the sky's the limit. Even though that those other personalities or those cultures that I mentioned are attractive to some people, well, what I like about New Mexico, it almost reminds me, or Rio Rancho, I should say, reminds me of the Silicon Valley in San Francisco, where it had a tie to the major city, San Francisco, but then it made its own personality. And we know it as a high-tech hub, not only of California, but of the world, we could say, Silicon Valley. So there's so many good things destined for Rio Rancho. And now for the third term, the mayor has won his term again just yesterday. Let me just play you this video here, just so you'll know. Oops, sorry about that. Let me get out of here, please. I had it ready. Can you imagine that? Okay, this should be it right here, folks. Okay. Everyone could still see. Fantastic. So what I'm showing you now is the Civic Center Plaza area. Behind me, I'm going to show you what's behind me in a little bit. But I just wanted you to see on both sides of King Boulevard, which is the main boulevard heading into the Civic Center or City Hall. And right here is Civic Center or the City Hall building of Rio Rancho. Now, all of the required institutions are already here. Here is UNM. Back here to the left where we pass that building, that's CNM. Here is UNM Hospital. Behind that is the new orthopedic, excellent, the Orthopedic Excellency Discovery Center. I forget the specific name to it, but doctors from all the nation, from around the nation and internationally, are coming to this state-of-the-art orthopedic hospital of excellency here. So this is a huge opportunity where you start to see institutions that are already here that are critical to any city. And to the left over here, you're going to see this is the only commercial tech building, HP building specifically, that was built, I would say, more than 10 years ago when I first came here. I think they were finishing it up. But HP put a mark on here, and I think the city wanted them to move here. But what we're proposing to do is, I'm proposing on both sides of King Boulevard, with the blessing of the mayor, that we put in a huge development, a completion of their complete boulevard here from mixed-use buildings. Bottom half of this would all be retail shopping with an app type of modern shopping ease for anyone that owns a device, that they could come in before they come in or during when they're coming in to start to shop via their app. Now, why this is important, anyone that's in high tech knows that one thing that we did discover through this pandemic, living at home, a lot of people were on their devices ordering things. So we don't want to go backwards. We want, if anything, we want to complement that huge step in technology where people now, if they come out, they could do this. And this isn't nothing new, I should say. This is relatively new in the sense that Mr. Bezos already is applying this to his brick and mortar stores. Over here to the far center is the Rio Rancho Civic Center. This holds anywhere from about 5,000 to 10,000 people, and you could have hockey games, concerts, whatever. But here, I could show you this a little bit later, but this is the most recent development here, which they call the Sky Room of Campus Park. It's a beautiful area where they're hoping to bring people and to really enjoy this area. Now, coming from San Francisco, we have parks close to the Civic Center. There's parks all around San Francisco, but what is so vital about a park is that you could live in the area and you could go to the park and just be part of your community. So here, like I said, first story would be all retail with modern app application. Second and third floor would be professional offices, i.e. like your attorneys, your doctors, your dentists. This would be fabulous. All this would be post-COVID design. On top of that, fourth, fifth, sixth, probably seventh and eighth floors would be all modern apartments, flats, higher end. If anyone knows New Mexico, the problem that I saw in New Mexico, or I continue to see it, well, specifically when I first came here, was that they weren't keeping up with the product that most states were putting in place. What I mean by that, you know, you could have lower end apartments, that's fine, but you want to not cut yourself short for your city to have or to be all that it can be for anyone, depending on, you know, how much people want to spend on apartments, what they're looking for, condominiums, this, that, and the other. So Rio Rancho is going to go a step higher than anyone else here. We want to go higher end on these things. And then of course, the terrific view that we have here. So as you could see on both sides, west and east of the main boulevard, there is nothing here. And what's even more important, folks, is that all this is city owned. What's more important, you're not going to have the problem with what we call NIBBYs, not in my backyards, residential people. I'm sure that Doug, Justin, you guys know what I'm talking about. Definitely in San Francisco, this is what we see. But the nice thing about this, you could already start to put in these components and not have any, how should I say this, not any pushback. So this is nice, and the mayor knows this. Now, with that said, I wanted to show you guys, can anyone see this, this PowerPoint? Okay, fantastic. Now this PowerPoint, as we could see here, give me one moment. Let me just start this up again. Right when you want things to work, they don't work. But anyway, so when I mentioned to you that the mayor of Rio Rancho, him and I are always talking, and he really likes this idea. In fact, he's pro-growth and he wants this to happen. And so what we want to do is we want this, we want to introduce this huge opportunity to the public. So when I showed you before all those both sides, what we're going to do is start on something smaller that is going to introduce the bigger projects. And that's what this whole meeting is about. But here it shows both the mayor and myself here. I belong to Real Men of Real Estate. It's what we do is we interview people that have anything to do with commercial or residential real estate. We have about 5 million listeners stationed out of California. But anyway, Mayor Hall was one of my guests. But as you can see here, that I'm in collaboration. We're trying to cooperate with the city. I'm in constant contact with him, the city mayor. the city mayor and the city manager, planners. And right now, my architect and I are starting on that smaller development, and we are entertaining investors at a smaller scale. And I'll continue to go on to this presentation. So so here, myself, the impact investor manager and commercial real estate broker, I answer all the queries and the importance of development and building in the Civic Center Plaza of Rio Rancho. Like I mentioned, I'm in collaboration with all the city officials here. For more information, you could always go to my website or call me, and it is organic. We're putting different things on there. You could, search me out, social media. I'm in quite a few of the platforms there too. But as you could see, this backdrop, this I took from the fourth floor of the mayor's office, looking down into the King Boulevard here of the Civic Center Plaza. As you can see, barren here. This is hungry for development. So here, myself and the mayor, we both have this objective to really develop here. And Rio Rancho really is at a good point in their city life. What I mean by that is D.R. Horton, Pulte, they're already here. They've built hundreds of homes. But what we're seeing that is missing is the commercial component. And that's why we're trying to promote more of this. So as you can see, this is King Boulevard from the fourth floor, where my architect and myself were here, and the mayor. So let me see if I could shorten this up. But anyway, this is the proposed new modern civic center here. And then, like I mentioned, this is taken from the fourth floor. So here, what I wanted to let you know that in Rio Rancho, the New Mexico population in 2022, it is climbing. So I think this was taken early part of, or the latter part of 2020, but it is continuing to grow. Interesting enough, this was taken, I think, the beginning of, or the fourth quarter of 2019 through 2020 projected growth. So once again, taken in 2019, but the projected growth. One thing we noticed through the pandemic, there were people selling on both coasts and coming here. People, loaded with cash, buying homes here outright with cash. And this is interesting because when you start to see people coming here because they want to get more for their money as far as living quarters, the next thing that they're going to be looking, especially now that the things are getting a little bit more loose as far as the pandemic, now they need to make a living. People are wanting to get out. So the timing could not have been better now with our post-COVID design and what we're projecting with commercial mixed-use buildings. Upper scale boomer age couples are coming here, where ironically, before Rio Rancho was known as a retirement community, but now the average age is 36. So as Michael mentioned, there are cities that are bigger than Rio Rancho, but this one right here is one of the fastest growing, if not the fastest. I wanted to mention too, Michael did mention about a city just south of Highway 40. Now, one thing that you have to keep in mind, that's great that those cities are there and they are growing. But what I like about Rio Rancho, it's stationed north of 40. What's so advantageous about that? Well, if you think about it, you're going to lessen that restriction of traffic going from 40 to 25. And also you're closer to Colorado, you're closer to Arizona, you're closer to Nevada, California. And the west side of Rio Rancho is open for growth, which I am calling the Internet of Things district. Mr. Bezos is already there. I think he bought a spread out there in 2019 or 2020, I should say, and he's growing. All right, so here, what are the accolades of Rio Rancho? Well, it was named the best place to live in New Mexico from Money Magazine in 2018. Once again, it's the best place in America out of 580 qualified places by Money Magazine. In 2017, Rio Rancho was named the best place to live in New Mexico by Money Magazine. So Money Magazine, a lot of people read Money Magazine because, once again, it has to do with how you're investing your money, where you're going to be living. And one of the key, say, industries is real estate in the Money Magazine. So as you could see, it's been in this magazine and in Business Magazine for quite some time. And not to mention, we're still going to be waiting for some accolades coming up here soon. So the future is now for Rio Rancho. Affordability, great communities, stunning views are a few reasons why the tech firms are excited about this region. Now, if anyone, I know that most of you were in high tech, please feel free right now does anyone have any questions thus far? Anyone that's in tech or anyone liking what they're seeing so far?
I have a question for. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Marla.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Doug. I have a question about how the mayor is planning on handling crime. And because I know that the level inside of Albuquerque's city limits is it's very high. And a lot of people are kind of turned off of that because of the fact that the crime rate is high. The other issue that I hear and I experienced by living there was, the casinos are there, the Indian reservations are there, which is wonderful. But there are issues that are part of that whole thing. So what is the mayor's position on, crime and growth and all that kind of stuff?
That is an excellent question. And Doug, was your question similar to that, or what did you need to say?
No, I was curious about jobs and employment in the region, and if it was a lot of people that worked in Albuquerque and are just looking to go out more towards the suburbs.
Okay, fantastic. Let me just show you this because I think this is going to answer your question here. Give me one moment. Let me turn on this sound here. Tell me if you all could hear the sound playing here. Thumbs up. This is going to answer your question, Marla. And also you, Doug.
Hello, I'm Greg Hull, Mayor of Rio Rancho. It is a privilege to give the City Council and citizens of Rio Rancho my annual State of the City report. 2021 marks our 40th year as an official city. Despite the challenges of the pandemic, Rio Rancho has persevered and continues to shine as an exemplary community in which to live, work, and play. During the past year, critical work and projects were completed and important policy decisions were made. These combined actions will help to ensure the quality of life and prosperity in Rio Rancho will remain strong over the course of our next 40 years. A personal highlight for me in 2021 and for many others in the community was the opening of Campus Park right here in City Center. The opening coincided with our Community 4th of July celebration and featured a performance by the New Mexico Philharmonic and a fantastic fireworks show. Phase 1 includes an amphitheater, event lawns with trails, and space for food trucks. On a daily basis, the park will be enjoyed by college students, City Center employees, and local residents. At other times, it will be home to special city events such as movies, concerts, festivals, recreational opportunities, and much more. The past 12 months were a banner year in Rio Rancho in terms of job creation. With the state of New Mexico as its partner, Rio Rancho leaders work to bring NTX Bio, a cutting-edge, innovation-leading bioscience company, to the community, bringing with it up to 116 high-paying jobs. Intel's announcement of a $3.5 billion investment at its current facility and 700 new jobs was supported by the state, county, and the city of Rio Rancho. In addition to our job creation efforts, we develop programs to support existing businesses. More than $500,000 was provided to small businesses which were negatively impacted by the pandemic. For too long, Rio Rancho residents living in the northern quadrant of our city lacked quick and easy access to library and recreational services. Because of the city's strong financial position, property availability, and city staff members consistently thinking outside the box, a new quality of life center will open in the Enchanted Hills area in 2022. Half of the building space will be used for a new branch library, with the remainder of the facility dedicated to youth and adult recreational programs and classes, and a multi-purpose community meeting space.
This is for you, Marla.
Public safety continues to be a top priority for Rio Rancho's available funding and resources, as evidenced by our ranking, ratings, and data. We've made significant investments in public safety salary increases. We've added more positions and, for the first time ever, have established a regular public safety bond cycle to ensure personnel have new, top-of-the-line vehicles and equipment, as well as remodeled and improved facilities. It's no wonder Rio Rancho remains one of the safest cities, not only in New Mexico, but in the entire Southwest. The facts speak for themselves. Rio Rancho's crime rate is extremely low and has decreased 13% since 2018. Response times to the highest priority calls for service have decreased by more than 20% since 2018. And I am proud to say Rio Rancho's police department is fully staffed. This past year, Rio Rancho's Fire and Rescue Department was independently evaluated for its ability to provide service. I'm excited to announce that the evaluation rating placed Rio Rancho in the top 4% of all departments across the country. Rio Rancho is a city that continues to attract new residents and businesses, which is evident from the amount of construction in our community. For example, Presbyterian Rust Medical Center completed a major expansion, and the UNM Sandoval Regional Medical Center's second building, a center for excellence in orthopedic surgery and rehabilitation, will open in the near future, right here in City Center. Plus, more than 900 new home permits were issued in 2020, which is the highest number in the city since 2008. And new home permits in 2021 are pacing ahead of 2020. Prior to my becoming mayor, city roadways had been neglected for a very long time. But thanks to voter support of road bond questions, together with development and funding of new initiatives, significant progress and greatly improved roadways can be seen throughout the community. By the end of 2020, every section of Southern Boulevard, our historic and main business corridor, had received some type of reconstruction or improvement. The Neighborhood Streets Improvement Project has repaired over 5,000 cracks, which equates to roughly 60 miles of residential roads. And Unser Boulevard, a roadway used by more than 40,000 people a day, has received major improvements, with project work being completed ahead of schedule. The opening of Broadmoor Senior Center, right here at City Center, marks for the first time 2 senior centers in Rio Rancho for residents to use and enjoy. Phase 1 of the new senior center was made possible thanks to $3.4 million in voter-approved statewide general obligation bonds for senior facilities. Together with a land lease partnership with the University of New Mexico Health Sciences Center, this new senior center will offer traditional services as well as additional services courtesy of the nearby University of New Mexico. I firmly believe the decisions and policies undertaken by this administration in prior years and over the past 12 months will ensure that quality of life remains high in Rio Rancho. National observers agree. Rio Rancho has been ranked by Money Magazine as one of the 50 best places to live in America. Locally, Rio Rancho residents believe the city is on the right track and making great progress, as evidenced by a recent, thorough, and statistically valid citizen survey. Survey results show high ratings for Rio Rancho as a community in which to live, a safe place in which to live, and a community in which residents experience a low cost of living. Historically, services highly valued by our community, such as police, fire, parks and recreation, and libraries, remained highly regarded. Since the city began doing a regular survey in 2015, great strides in positive resident feedback have been made in areas such as overall image, economic health, local government, customer service, value in taxes paid, government honesty, and overall direction. In closing, as we reflect on Rio Rancho's past 40 years, it's clear we've come a long way, including having made great strides over the past year. Our small retirement community on the outskirts of Albuquerque has been transformed into a modern city that is a highly desirable place to work and live. I look forward to continue working with the City Council, city staff, and citizens to keep Rio Rancho's future bright. Thank you, and God bless.
I wanted to say, so did that answer your question? I think, Marla, one thing that people don't know here, the problems that Albuquerque have nothing to do with Rio Rancho as far as their crime rate. That's why a lot of people like to move to Rio Rancho. Rio
Right.
Rancho.
I was kind of thinking that as, you know, that division in Silicon Valley, where you have the division between, you know, the South Bay and Palo Alto. And you
Mhm.
have that bridge that goes over, and one side is not so desirable, and like literally over the bridge, the other side is like where you want to be. So is that kind of how Rio Rancho is looking at it? Is that they're literally separating themselves from Albuquerque to say, we do not cross paths there. We're done.
No, not at all. I think if you're talking about East Palo Alto over the train tracks, definitely. But if you think about it, excuse me, what separates, say, East Palo Alto from West Palo Alto, or, you know, the Palo Alto, is that train. So that was a dividing line. And I think the undesirable, say, plots of land on the east side, well, made it more advantageous for people that didn't want to spend so much money on lots that they could
Right.
move there, but be close to a beautiful area. What we
Right.
see here in Rio Rancho, what differs with that is that it is a hub in itself, in the sense that you have Albuquerque, the north side of Albuquerque, which ties into Rio Rancho nicely, and it's a nice area. But when we're talking the heart of the,
too. Bernalillo is a nice area as well.
oh,
So,
yes, exactly. You
and you've
know
got
that.
cats there. That's a big deal.
Yes.
So,
So in other words, what we're seeing is that, remember that I mentioned that Albuquerque as well as Santa Fe, and no disrespect on this, they already have a culture embedded in them, but Rio Rancho has not. So it would take any business person to really set the biases aside and see the huge opportunity here. And that's where, you know, I've been promoting this. Now I want to go on because I know that the time, it was only for an hour, but I hope that these are good questions. And if you have more questions, feel free to get a hold of me, and I would be more than happy to set up an appointment with each and every one of you. But there are companies that are moving here because of the rating, the police rating here. Do check for yourself, and I invite you, look at these stats. It's very important. And like what Marla did say, Bernalillo, quaint city, and you're not too far from Santa Fe. So it's strategically, I think it's placed nice as far as geographically. So now the Civic Center is a network of spaces or buildings that provide essential services to a city and town. So this is what's missing here, and you need to have this. I guarantee you, once a city puts in a Civic Center Plaza, it's going to put its name on the map, and that's what we're wanting to do. So now I wanted just to express to you a little bit about the difference on commercial or mixed use or multifamily versus commercial real estate. I mean, residential. So here, are mixed use multifamily commercial real estate projects or buildings a good hedge against inflation? Now listen to this. Multifamily is one of the strongest commercial real estate asset classes and has kept up with natural inflation. Generally speaking, a property owner can increase rents a year over the same amount that natural inflation is occurring at. What we mean by that, I was a property manager in San Francisco. We had rentals there. And don't you know that to this day, San Francisco is the most expensive place to live in because that it's kept up with inflation due to the high-tech, say, industry there, and that our people they love to live in San Francisco because of the high-paying jobs. And how much is high-paying job? In fact, if you are not making as a single person more than $112,000 per year, you're considered, low income. You have to be making a lot of money to live there. So real estate, commercial real estate, multifamily investors know this to be a great means of investment. Wherever you're going to have people coming to a city because of its high-tech industry, you are going to have to put in what we call middle housing or more housing for people. And that's what's missing here in Rio Rancho. And I must say, not only in Rio Rancho, this is a problem that the nation is having, not enough units. So this is something that people need to consider this. So now real estate has been a good hedge against inflation and will be in the future. Real estate has historically performed a strong hedge against inflation, regardless of interest rates. So the charts below, which you'll see, is it tells us here, above is the consumer price index from 1950 to 2020. And as you can see, inflation hit a high of 13.5% in 1980. And I remember this, I was just a kid. But you could start to see that how if you have a component, multifamily component, that you could start to really use that against inflation, where you could start governing your rental. And now that this area doesn't have rent control, naturally, that is, say, something positive in investing. And this here too, let me shorten this out. But as you can see, historical median monthly rents have been climbing. And this is typical in multifamily dwellings. Now, one thing about hedging on commercial is, think about this. A lot of people, like I mentioned, and my family included when we first started, that was the normal for people to get into residential market because you don't have a lot of people to deal with. But if you think about it, advantageous things require more help, but the payoff is in higher profits or return on investments. Think of it this way. If you have one house and you're renting it, can you imagine when you buy and flip homes or buy and rent them for passive income, you spend a lot more. What we mean by that, you could have 10 properties throughout, your city. But if something goes wrong with that, you have to drive out there and fix it. Or if that other one, you have to do the same thing. So you're really stretching your means of getting a profit thin. Whereas if you have multi-units, one on top of each other, say about anywhere from about 10 to 30 to 40 to 50 units, if you have a 5% vacancy rate, that's really not going to hurt your pocketbook. In fact, what's nice about having vacancies is you could always keep your units modern. What we mean by that, if one vacancy comes up, you have the opportunity with those other rents to modernize, clean up your properties. So this is what's advantageous in multi-unit properties. So this here, we're calling out for investors, ways to invest. Like we mentioned on the previous picture, we are wanting to put in a smaller building, not smaller in height, but in width, where you saw on both sides of those city-owned parcels. We have now marketed up by that curb where I was showing you, and the drone was flying over. And this is where we're going to put the first building. Once again, it'll be anywhere from about 5 to 7 stories, retail on the bottom. Second and third floor will be professional buildings, offices, I should say. And then on top of that will be our multifamily units with about 10 to 25% Airbnb component. Excuse me. We know this to be, say, advantageous and prosperous is because the doctors at these facilities, these institutions that are in the Civic Center Plaza, are wanting places to stay where they work in that new facility, but they have to travel for housing. And this is nice where you could have someone to come in. Maybe they don't want to buy a place, they want to rent, and it's going to be close by. You'll have eateries on the bottom floor. So we're starting to really picture this as a modern civic center place, a destiny where people could come and live. So these are this is a hypothetical graph here, or a definition of what we're looking for as far as sophisticated general partners, equity partners, Class A accredited investors, $250,000 or more, Class B, 100,000 or more, and the passive limited partnerships, amounts of deposits. These is per annum. Now, why I went ahead and did this, there were people that were saying, Paul, this sounds interesting, but we don't have $250,000 or 100,000, but we do have, smaller funds. This is more like NFTs, what we're trying to promote, where people, the general public, could come in and invest. And then from there, we could make an entity within that realm of smaller investors putting into these funds. So as this and even cryptocurrencies, you get an interest. You could be part of big things where, say, if you wanted to get into real estate, but you didn't have enough, say you as an individual, this is a really good way to put in some money to invest in the future. So once again, these are hypotheticals. In any investment, talk to your attorneys, talk to your CPAs and accountants. There's always risk involved, but with anything worthwhile, you always need to take a risk. And that's what's going to really determine, but this is calculated risk, remember that. And what I want to do is I want to get together with these equity partners to see if we are a good match, because we do want to vet our partners to see if they're going to keep on the right track with what we're doing here too as well. Because reputation is very, very important to my company and myself and anyone that I get involved with. But anyway, so once again, my information is here. You can visit my website, the office here at Rio Rancho, 505-318-1330, option 2. You will get a hold of me. But does anyone have a question, please?
Sure.
Yes, Michael.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, Doug. Whichever
I think
one.
we both did. My questions were hotels near there, if that was absorbing some of the probably travel nurses and doctors that you're seeing at the medical center, and then other part would be public transit in towards the downtown area and in towards Albuquerque.
Excellent questions. What we're trying to do, Doug, is like in any city urban hub, we want to introduce that area. And of course, I've already talked to the mayor. Not only are we promoting this Civic Center Plaza, but I am behind STEM and STEAM and autonomous commercial vehicle facilities here. Mr. Bezos is on the west side already, huge amount of land out there. And what we're proposing out there is to have some type of loop to bypass, say, that bottleneck of 40 and 25 to come over here on the west side, and then you could come into the train station. But with that said, with the autonomous vehicles that are really an up and coming industry, this is where we could put those commercial, say, buses, autonomous buses, or monorail systems here. Once again, a modern city. There's a lot to be done here. Does that answer your question, Doug?
Oh, so
And
you
there
are
is
looking towards the future, but is there any
Yes.
bus system currently in place?
Yes. There's some already that the city of Rio or Albuquerque that runs into Rio Rancho. But I could assure you this,
Okay.
once things start to grow here, Rio Rancho is going to invest in their own busing system, modern busing system.
Certainly.
Okay. Michael, did you have a question?
Yeah, there'll be a few. So, as I understand it, this is city-owned land. So your development is basically a land lease?
That's a great question. What we're going to do is, yes, we have to talk with the city about this. I've already been reaching out to major architectural firms. I already have an architect that we are going to build right at that turn. That's all private land there. And so we have already locked up some acreages there that we're going to build, say, a glimpse into the bigger Civic Center Plaza as you come on to King Boulevard. So definitely, yes, it's going to be a private-public cooperation in the city. I'm already talking, like I mentioned, to architectural firms that can be of big benefit to us in the development or the conceptual designs.
And what type of economic incentives do they have? Do they have tax tiers, tax increment reinvestment zones, historic tax credit? Well, doesn't look like there's a whole lot there, so there's probably not. Historic tax credits, those sorts of economic incentives to, because this is cash heavy up front, and there's no. I mean, you're betting on the come here. Where's the upfront benefit for your investors?
Yes, that is an excellent question, Michael, and one that I have asked the city. You know what I like about the city of Rio Rancho is that they're not going to put all their cards on the table yet. Like we all know, money really talks. So I have put skin in the game. I have put in time and my own money in these things. The city of Rio Rancho, the mayor said, Paul, we are open to talking about investments, but first we want to see if there are bona fide investors here. We want to see that there is cash in hand, because anyone could say anything. And as time changes, you might have to change things. So this is why it's so important, even when, at a card game, you want to make sure that anyone that gets involved has the money and to back up what they're wanting to do. So they are open for that. In fact, he said, even in the zoning out there, Paul, it's all in flux. We are open to talking, and nothing is written in stone. So where in this day and age can you come across a city that is open like that? So of course, to answer your question, partially, Michael, they are open for introducing incentives because they have to if they know that they need to build their Civic Center Plaza. And we could get more information on that. Anyone else
It
have?
seems like in southern New Mexico, it's opportunity zone everywhere. It's just unbelievable the amount of acreage there. How is it up in that area? Do you have opportunity zones from the the IRS opportunity zones?
Excellent question. I was at a NAIOP meeting in Albuquerque, and unfortunately, they don't have opportunity zones here because it's not that old. If you look at Las Cruces and coming up all Highway 25, the reason why they're giving those incentives is because that was a trail that was used, gosh, when Spain first came out here, right? This was the route that they traveled. So those places were already in place. And if you look at those areas, I think you did mention Las Cruces, didn't you, Michael? Or which area were you mentioning?
Yeah. Las
Yeah.
Cruces
Okay.
is a good example, but
Yeah.
Las Cruces itself, the
Hmm.
surrounding area, it's not in the opportunity zone, but virtually everything else around it between us, Las Cruces and Spaceport. You talk about Jeff
Hmm.
Bezos. Well, this is where the rockets go up. Spaceport
Exactly.
there, and then here just outside of Van Horn, outside of El Paso. So we got Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk throwing up rockets all left and right and
Hmm.
stuff here. But those areas are not in the opportunity zone. Opportunity zones are for economically disadvantaged areas. I
Yes.
know it seems like New Mexico it's just huge opportunity
Hmm.
zones, but I just haven't looked at the maps up in your area.
Yes. So when you look at Rio Rancho, Michael, you're going to see that really Rio Rancho is different than anything else around here. It really looks like it is a more modern place, city, and area. And so that's why I think the city of Rio Rancho is open to discussing these things, even at a government level, where I think the governor really or has set aside some funds for Rio Rancho because they see that it is the fastest growing area here, and it's going to be the area with the most space to grow. And what I love about it too is its proximity to the West Coast. But anyway, I think the time is, I mean, I could stay on. I do have an appointment here in 30 minutes, but if you folks want to stay on, I'm more than happy to answer more questions. Justin or Kennedy's iPhone, does anyone have a question? Or Michael, do you have any more questions? And do keep in mind that I'm having investor webinars every other Thursday. So please feel free. I'll try to have different topics of discussion. What we're doing now, we're trying to get some conceptual design. So once people see that, I think that's going to open up opportunity. But we had to make sure that we have the steps in place. And any of this sound interesting to anyone so far?
I really just want to delve in more into the economics of the region. What are the jobs? Why are people moving there? And are you attracting enough businesses that want to be there? And is that resilient in the age of COVID, where people can more or less live in a lot of places? Like, is there something holding it? Like, if I'm correct, there's a Intel semiconductor manufacturing that could be a great thing to attract more Intel development, especially as we try to get off of the amount of things that we import from Taiwan. So I think there's potential for sure. I don't know the area very well, so I just want to really understand the economics, because if you build it, they won't necessarily come unless there's jobs that are drawing people there.
Right. That's an excellent question, Doug. Always economic. And that's why I am a proponent for economic development in Rio Rancho. The beautiful thing about Rio Rancho, they do have major, say, institutions here. One of them, you mentioned, Intel. They're going to be investing $3.5 billion. And as you well know, or if you did see the president's state of address just a couple of days ago, that same company is going to be putting in, I think it was, what is it, $30 billion in Ohio. So they're going to have a connection with Rio Rancho. What I look at is the thing that, propels me to keep this going is the brain drain or the emigration of the college and university students that leave here because of the lack of opportunity. Well, coming from San Francisco, knowing about Silicon Valley, we just don't want to start inviting companies to come here. We want the graduates to be the companies. How do you think big tech companies came to existence out of the Silicon Valley? It's not that they were wooing companies to come to San Francisco. These graduates that were in, say, Stanford University, the venture capitalists set up their offices near that university. And what did they do? They integrated say with the schools there, a curriculum that would prime these students, not only that you were going to be a graduate, one of the top ranking graduates in your industry, but guess what? We have the funds here to support that. So this is a win-win situation for a city that doesn't have to wait on companies. And if you think about it, if you wait for big companies to come, what you're really doing is you're giving up that privilege. Where I grew up in an industry and a family that we were entrepreneurs, and I'm thankful because in colleges, most universities and colleges, they pretty much punch out employees, where what we want to do is punch out companies, entrepreneurs, people that, the sky's the limit for them. And right now, this industry, or this turn-in industry of, autonomous vehicles, and seeing that the environment needs new industry, this is where we see an advantage.
Well, one of the things that you have there in San Francisco also is a lot of quality of life. I mean, you're close to you got Napa Valley, and one of my favorite places there. There's a lot of stuff to do. You got the ocean, you got this, you got that. It sounds to me like Rio Rancho. What is the draw? Why would somebody want to relocate to that? Because that when you start talking about the large corporations, and one of the big challenges we had here in El Paso is trying to attract the Amazons and the biggies here is, do you bring in outside people, executives and what have you, get them to relocate, or are you providing jobs to raise the local people? You see what I'm saying? And so
Yes.
It sounds like what you're doing is you're trying to build for the local people, or are you trying to attract employees from out of town?
Exactly. What I'm doing is I'm reaching out nationally and internationally for people to come see this area, because there's a huge opportunity. One, the real estate isn't as expensive as, say, San Francisco, New York, Chicago, those hubs. So this is what people look for too. Think about it. If you have a degree or you're a professional, pretty much the sky's the limit where you're going to pick. Now, what I'm thinking is just economics. I could go to a place, save more money, say on a place where I'm going to live, and still have an opportunity to grow in my industry. And what we see already is that, once again, those institutions are already here. The University of New Mexico already put their footprint there. CNM, the College of New Mexico, and the excellent, or the Orthopedic Hospital of Excellency is already there, which is attracting and already has national doctors already there and international doctors. So once you start to get professionals in an area, they go ahead and talk too. And they're getting paid well. So this is an incentive to build up these things in these places. All you need is for people to know this, and you build something, and professionals will start investing in this. And before you know it, you start putting in these components. And the thing is, the exit strategy is here. If we build middle housing, which we already know we need here, so that is going to be fulfilled either by the people here, which we're going to attract from different places. Jeff Bezos, like I said, is already on the west side. And once that starts for people to get to know that more, there are going to be other companies that are going to move in there. But we're just not leaving it for big companies to move here. We want to have opportunities for everyone here, if that makes sense. Well, if anyone else have any questions, more questions? You're muted, Michael, if you are saying something. And these are great questions. This is what I want. Please, Michael and Doug, write down my information, because you two fit the mindset, the professionalism of who we would love to partner with. And so keep this in mind. This is a huge opportunity. And then, like any investment, either in real estate or the stock market, we always know it's those that see a huge opportunity from the beginning, that get in early on, that really reap the biggest benefits. So
it's interesting. One of my large clients here, and I've been doing real estate for 37 plus years here, is one of the largest orthopedic surgery groups in the country. And probably in the last 10, 15 years, I bet I've had 10 of them retire, and they've all gone up to Santa Fe. So it's interesting that Santa Fe didn't get the orthopedic specialty hospital, and you all did there. And there might be an opportunity there, but I'm just thinking quality of life. A lot of those things, of course, the cost. Santa Fe is very, very expensive. You know, the millionaires complain that the billionaires are moving in. Even the millionaires can't afford to live in Santa Fe anymore. But you know, that's kind of an interesting concept that you've got there, and I'd like to follow up with that to see if
Fantastic.
that's a possibility for some of my clientele. That, you know, I still do a lot of I do their commercial, but I also do their residential. That maybe there's a connection that we can probably do something there with some referral business.
Of course, Michael. And I'll tell you why Rio Rancho is different and why they picked here. Geographically, where it's located, and the space around here. This is what separates itself from, say, Santa Fe, that, you know, as far as geographically where it's located and the amount of space and how the city was designed there, it's an older style plaza out there. And this is a more modern, sophisticated, growing city. So this is what people look for as far as putting in these institutions. And what's nice about it, in the future, there'll be a connection from here to Santa Fe. So if you want, you could move to Santa Fe. But here is where the young population will want to be. We're already seeing that. They want to stay here in Rio Rancho. A lot of the students don't want to leave. Well,
And
very
my
well.
clientele is actually the older ones. They're looking to retire. So
Yes.
probably that's why Santa Fe would be maybe more attractive, because they're retired. They're not going to be working. They're just going to be relaxing, spending money, and enjoying life. So quality of life, really, especially when you've got something like that, that's a jewel. That's an amazing thing to have. But that's going to be a different demographic that you're going to be attracting there, as opposed to, you know, the retirement.
Well, one thing's important too to know, Michael, even in San Francisco, in the city proper, there are a lot of baby boomers and retired people that invest in, say, apartments, condominiums there, because they know that the rents will help supplement their income as well. And two, once again, it serves as a hedge for inflation. And also people that have real estate portfolios, they know they look for places to invest. So this is something that you could share with your investors. And you know, this is getting the juices flowing in my thinking, that maybe I might even have a presentation that gears specifically into retirees investing into this area. But well, gentlemen, if no one has any more questions, I'm going to be having to prepare for another meeting. But let's keep in touch. I don't know if why don't everyone put their information on this chat, and I'd love to stay in touch with y'all, with both of you or everyone here. If you could put your information there, Paul, I have to run due to okay, I didn't see this. Okay, fantastic. And Justin, and do feel free to save the chat. Let me put my information. Did you folks get my information? If not, I could put it on there again.
I think we're, yeah, I have your number, and I think we're connected on LinkedIn as well.
Okay, great. And Michael, I think we're connected on LinkedIn too. Michael, you're muted. Mike, you're.
Sorry about that. I've got so many screens up. I've got,
yes,
yeah, quite possibly. I've got, I don't know.
Yeah, if you were invited,
10,000 contacts or something in LinkedIn. So, quite possibly.
Yeah, definitely. If you got the invitation, then we are connected. But
okay.
but
that's where we ran into each other then.
Yes, but just in case, let me just put my information here, just in case you guys want to get a hold of me, because that is another. Let me see. Let me just put this on the chat, and then we could further talk about this.
So I just tried to connect with Doug.
I'm sorry?
I think I sent you a connection request.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Okay, so here
There's
goes,
another thing going on in the background here, so well, I'll
and
get
here's,
caught up on that.
and here's my information, everyone. But do feel free to save the chat too. And so anyway, gentlemen and ladies, it is my pleasure once again to have had this opportunity to present this to you. And I really enjoyed the questions. It just gives me more of a feeling that you're interested. And if you want me to present anything that has to do with this, please feel free to send it over to me, and I'd be more than happy to put something together. Well, everyone,
Thank you so much for your time, Paul.
it's my pleasure. I hope to keep in contact with you, Doug and Michael and
Good
Kennedy.
to meet you, Doug.
Good
Bye
meeting
now,
as well,
everyone.
Michael. Take care.
Bye-bye.